Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Now, today's first story comes from Pocket Lobster 88. A couple of people have sent me this on Twitter as well, and it's titled, "Am I the arsehole for going off on my wife after she made a sex sign to keep my mum from knocking on our bedroom door?" And of course comes with an update too. So, I've been married to my wife for 4 years. We had a medium-sized apartment. For the last 2 months, my mother has been staying off and on in our guest room. My dad recently passed away, and it's hard for her to live in their house alone, so I've been letting her stay with us. My wife and her have never particularly got along, but I expected her to understand why it's important to me that she overlooked that just for a little while. I mean, she lost her husband of 40 years. She's fragile, and I really want to be able to do what I can to make her feel better. My mum's presence has changed our routine a little bit. Mainly our nighttime routine. She usually comes knock on our door to talk. My wife hates this, partially because it interrupts our intimacy. Usually when she's over, we just don't make love. So this past week I noticed my mum wasn't coming in at night, so we had normal nighttime habits. Yesterday, mum pulled me aside and told me that the sign I let my wife put on the door at night was disgusting and not something she ever needed to know. She also said that she was very hurt that I don't want to speak to her since I'm all she has left now. I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. She said the sign about sex. I still had no idea and talked to my wife about it when she got home. She admitted to it. She said that she made a sign to keep my mum out of our hair at night. On the sign was written, "Please do not disturb unless you want to see me fucking your son." She thought it was funny and necessary, but I was mad about it. I took the sign, crumpled it up and tossed it in the garbage. I then went off on my wife about how inappropriate and embarrassing this was. She told me it was my fault, that we needed this and it's just a joke. I slept on the couch last night and she's still pissed at me. Am I the arsehole? But Simply Sam says, "You're the arsehole. You need to set boundaries with your mother and not let her intrude on your marriage. My mother is my best friend, and when my father died after 46 years of marriage, she wouldn't dream of intruding on me like this. The sign might have been crass, but it sounds like your wife has had enough." Confused Help Me says, "You're the arsehole. There's 24 hours in the day, and your mum can only seem to talk to you when it's bedtime. I understand wanting to support your mother, but she's going to be codependent on you if you keep allowing her to stomp on boundaries. She's already started to plant seeds of manipulation of 'you're all I have left,' making you feel guilty. My grandma lost my grandpa after 50 years of marriage. She moved houses and developed her own routine so she could grow as an individual. She said change and not to be dependent on others is what keeps her going. She misses my grandpa dearly but is happy where she is in life. Your mother needs to start finding herself again in ways that don't involve you." Sati says, "Not the arsehole. Your wife's sign is crude, classless, and cringy as fuck. And it was most definitely not a joke. She set out to embarrass your grieving mother and just ended up embarrassing herself. That said, you should be able to ask your mother politely not to knock after a certain hour. It doesn't sound like anyone has tried to be polite and clear communication of needs. May want to see how that goes." Merck says, "Not the arsehole. What your wife did just seems like a passive-aggressive way to tell someone to go away. Kinda surprised so many other commenters say you were the arsehole. Your wife doesn't seem to have a whole lot of empathy for what your mother is going through. Maybe that's because they already didn't get along before your dad passed. You may want to try and set some sort of schedule or boundaries with your mum though. Maybe you and her have your little chit chat before you go to bed." Dinasha says, "Everyone sucks here. It's great you want to be there for your mother and she needs the help, but not how she's doing it. Who comes barging in during the middle of the night when you can do so earlier? Your wife could have a talk with you about the issue she has with a late night interruption by your mother with you and give you a chance to deal with it, but she probably assumes you're too blinded to do anything and resort to such a move with your spotless history, doing nothing to help her. Everyone needs to communicate and respect the boundaries, and your mother needs professional help, not you alone." And one more from Professional Sir who says, "You're the arsehole. Look at that, you went from being intimate on a daily basis to sleeping on the couch, all because you couldn't stand up to your mother. Next time tell your mother you need to be intimate with your wife and you guys can chat in the morning. PS, I love your wife's sign. Now, what do you guys make of this one so far, and let's move on to the update to find out what happened next. So the update says, some people asked our ages. I'm 26 and my wife is 25. We have no kids and are waiting until we save up some more money before we start trying for one. So I took a lot of the nicer comments here to heart, so I took action. First I sat down with my mother and tried to get to the root of the issue. She told me that she'd been doing this as she's just been so lonely and wants to feel connected to her only flesh and blood she has left. This made me really feel for her, so I went to my wife to apologize and try to negotiate something. My wife, however, told me that she doesn't want my mum living here anymore. I tried to see if she could just let her stay one more weekend, but she rejected. Me and my wife sat her down and I told her that we felt we needed more privacy from her, so we asked her to leave for the time being. This set my mum off. She started crying and accusing my wife of trying to, her words, break us up. I felt bad, like awful. I tried just talking to her and I wanted to get to the root of why she felt like she needed to be here. She said that now I'm her only flesh and blood alive, and if my wife keeps me wrapped around her finger with sex, I'll forget all about her, so she was trying to interrupt that. She also was worried that if I get my wife pregnant, I'll be too busy with her to see her again, and I'll be stuck with my wife when I could do so much better. This made my wife very upset, and I told my mum I think she needed to leave then. The crying turned into full-on bawling and yelling at my wife. Eventually I was able to get her out. I told her that I don't think it's best that we speak until she gets over her issues with my wife. Now looking at this, I feel awful. I had a presences who actively wanted my wife gone and didn't want us to be intimate or have couples time. And to top it off, I argued with my wife. She wanted to remove said presence. Like I said, I won't be contacting my mother until she apologizes and my wife accepts it. And I don't think she'll be staying over anytime in the near future. I will also be spoiling my wife rotten until I can make this up to her. Now, what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and let's go in to the next story. This story comes from Portable Chaos 719 who says, am I the arsehole for overreacting about how everything went down on Mother's Day? My friends and my husband both state that I'm overreacting here and I've never felt more invalidated in my life. So I need unbiased feedback. I have 2 sons from my previous relationship, 12 and 9. I've been with my husband for 8 years. My children's father passed away 6 years ago in a car wreck and my husband has since made multiple points to bring up adopting my children. I only bring this up because one of my friends, whom I have now cut off, stated that they aren't technically his kids and that this is why she states I'm overreacting. He calls my kids his babies. Anyways, I've been pretty mentally depleted and pouring from an empty cup for some months now. I'm just overwhelmed and feel like everyone, including my husband, expect me to fix all their problems and it's become a lot. Like my husband is constantly asking me to come up with solutions for him and then my kids on top of that. I just needed a break. So on Mother's Day, my husband watched the kids while I took a nap. You would have thought I was in a freaking coma or something because I laid down at 11 AM and didn't get up until 7 PM. I clearly needed it. When I woke up, I will admit that I was immediately peeved. I didn't smell dinner or anything like that, so I asked my husband if he had made the boys anything to eat and he said he just gave them the cup of noodles versus making dinner. So not only did my kids not eat the food that I had specifically unthawed because my husband didn't feel like cooking, he hardly ever does, but I also didn't have any food for when I woke up. I just thought it was incredibly selfish and inconsiderate, mainly due to the fact that he didn't want to cook because he was playing video games. I didn't get any cards or gifts or anything. All I did was take a nap. So I was trying to push this out of my head and not make a big deal about it. Like desperately, because it just felt like once again, a day that was supposed to be about dedicated to appreciating me didn't turn out this way. But I was trying not to see it that way. Well, then shit hit the fan because I say I'm going to get myself food because I was starving and my husband immediately asked me to go get him something too from a different place clear across town. I made a snarky comment about, it's Mother's Day, you should be going for me. So he starts huffing and puffing about it because he is playing video games but gets up to go. He came back with something I didn't want because he thought I would like it, and later admits that we didn't actually have money for the thing I wanted, steak and shrimp, which is kind of pricey. I asked him how we didn't have the money for it because we had over $400 in the bank the day before, and he tells me that he sent his mother $250 to pay for a car note for Mother's Day and a big bouquet of flowers that cost him $40. Again, all I got was a fucking nap. So I was pissed, but like I said, everyone is saying I'm being overdramatic about this and being an arsehole for blowing this out of proportion. Am I the arsehole? Now I have a feeling this is more than just about Mother's Day, that this may be like an ongoing thing and that's why Mum is so depleted, but obviously I don't have all this information, so I'm not going to go too far into that, but that's what it feels like to me, and I feel like I should say that. But also a huge thing that jumped out to me is what you were talking about, that, we had $400 in the bank the day before, so I'm assuming it's a joint account, so joint decisions should be made on how that's spent, but he sent $250 to pay for her mum's car note for Mother's Day and a big bouquet of flowers that cost him $40. And whilst he was doing that as well, there was no consideration about buying you anything for Mother's Day, even just a meal that you requested. You mentioned it was kind of pricey, but you did have that money for it. So you ended up getting something completely different that you didn't even like. Oh, dearie me. But Forward Squirrel says, not the arsehole, your husband spent nearly 75% of the limited funds you had in what I assume was a joint account without discussing it with you. That alone is a cause for major concern within your marriage. MD Thomas says, I'm thinking this is about more than just Mother's Day. I'm going to recommend some couples counselling, not the arsehole. C Mud says, not the arsehole, but forget this one day. You have a problem that your husband isn't a full participating member of the household, and he took a significant amount of money from a joint account without telling you. New ground rules. Now, he learns to cook, he gets off his ass from the video games and manages more of the household work. And you have an agreement about what comes out of that account. You are burned out because he treats you like dirt and then is peeved that you don't accept that quietly. Lyria says, not the arsehole. I would also be pissed my husband can't afford to gift his mum almost $300 but couldn't even get dinner I had wanted. Give him the same on Father's Day and see how he likes it. MZP says, not the arsehole. Your friend is a shit friend. Your husband is a shit husband. And one more from Maleficent Ad who says, not the arsehole. He could plan enough to send flowers to his mum and $250, but he couldn't do jack shit for you. Man, he sucks. Now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? How would you react? How would you feel if you was in OP's position? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from Bitter Mistake 7214, who says, am I the arsehole for refusing to get rid of my 2 dogs for my husband's allergic love child? My husband had a one-night stand. After much counselling, I decided to forgive him and work on our marriage. Unfortunately, the woman got pregnant and they now have a 3-year-old boy. I have 2 5-year-old French bulldogs whom I and my 2 kids have with my husband, 14 female and 9 male. Unfortunately, being short-haired dogs, these kind tend to produce the most reaction in those who are allergic. I was fully prepared to welcome this child into my home with open arms and be the best stepmother I could possibly be, as the child is innocent and he is the little brother of my 2 children. My husband has visitation every other weekend. Unfortunately, this child is highly allergic to dogs and his mother is demanding that we get rid of the dogs. These dogs have been with me through thick and thin. They were there with me when I suffered severe depression over my husband cheating, and my kids adore them too. I absolutely refuse to get rid of these dogs. I told my husband he could either do the visitation at a hotel, get a second apartment for him and his son, or we can build an in-law unit at his expense above the garage, but I told him my only stipulations are that this comes out of his own pocket and he may not dip into our kids' college funds and the dogs stay. Because the child is so young, he doesn't understand why he's not allowed to come to the house and feels left out as a result. Am I the arsehole for refusing to get rid of my dogs because my husband cheated? When he was hemming and hawing because he wanted to be all things to all people, I told him I will divorce him well before I do away with the dogs. Now this is a not the arsehole to me. I mean, OP has been so accommodating in this one story alone, you know, moving past cheating with the counseling and stuff that they did, then recognizing that they have a love child and was willing to accept them into their home with open arms and be a best stepmother they could possibly be. Recognizing, you know, the child is innocent in this and he is a little brother to her 2 children. But I don't blame her for not wanting to get rid of other family members, her 2 dogs who have been with her, and putting myself in her shoes, and someone told me I need to get rid of Poppy for them, I'd be like, hell no. That dog is a part of my family, like my brothers, my nieces and nephews. Poppy belongs with us just like anyone else, and there would be no way. And OP even made several other suggestions, you know, a hotel room, an in-law unit at the expense of him because, you know, he created the scenario to begin with. So absolutely not the arsehole to me. Chaos and Puppy says, keep the dogs, get rid of the husband. Not the arsehole. Wild that the woman who had an affair with your husband thinks she gets to dictate to you what animals you can have in your home. My Squishy Fishy says, not the arsehole. Geez Louise, the homewrecker is making demands. Seriously, she can go scratch herself. She's already been shown more grace by you than she deserves. Make your husband know your promise to leave him isn't an empty threat. Tiger Love Pepper replies that saying, the only homewrecker is the husband who was fully aware he had a wife before having an affair. Solar says in quotes, I told him I will divorce him well before I do away with the dogs, then goes on to say, it might be time to just rip the band-aid off, not the arsehole. To which Naked and Allayed replies that saying this, it all falls on him. I do not blame OP, especially she's offered plenty of compromises. I can't call the kid's mum one either. It's more than fair of her to say her kid can't go somewhere that would risk his life. We don't know if she knew she was the other woman or not. The husband created this mess. He needs to handle it, and frankly, if he's doing this and the kid is only 3, I'm all for divorce. MM172 says, not the arsehole, the kid is 3. He's feeling left out. That's because the adults around him are framing it as a problem, rather than a super cool thing he gets to do with just daddy. That said, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of things you may not have fully thought through when you decided to accept your husband's affair. You may need to revisit that. Slow Cherry says, not the arsehole. I think it's amazing that you're ready to accept and welcome the love child, because you are right, it's not his fault. However, the love child's mother has absolutely no right to demand anything of you. This is your husband's problem, and honestly, he has no right to ask anything of you either. I love how you stood up for yourself and children who loves their dogs. Be proud. Monstrous Moon says, not the arsehole. Dogs are family. You've offered alternatives. Hotel, mother-in-law unit, apartment. The child is 3. He may not understand everything, but daddy wants to spend time with you so much. But I also don't want the dogs to make you sick, so we get to spend time together here instead. Isn't too difficult. Make it a fun, special thing his father does for him, rather than a sad thing that happens to him. Plan dog-free outings you can all go on so he doesn't feel left out. Also OP, there are shots that will get rid of your allergies. There's a process and a lot of shots, so I don't know if it would work for your situation. But my SO has pretty bad cat allergies, and I have a cat. He started getting these shots early this year, and we've already noticed undeniable progress. My SO is stoked on it because soon he'll be able to be around cats without an issue, and turns out he loves cats. You learn something new every day. I didn't know you could get shots for allergies like that. God, I'm such an idiot. Now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and just a huge thank you for spending your time with me today, getting involved in the stories. Your love, support and time always means the absolute world to me, and you'll never understand the difference that you do make to this channel. It is absolutely mind-blowing. So thank you so much for what you do, truly, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care guys, much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today